I've had schools where people, learners wake up at 4 or even 3 a.m., 4 a.m. or 3 a.m., or even at 5, especially for kids who are like in nursery, primary, lower primary, waking up at 5 a.m. I think to me, all that is part of academic pressure. Yes.
Wow, thank you for giving us an insight to that. Wow, it's indeed very unfortunate. You can see the example you're trying to give us. And as you are trying to define academic pressure, one of our elders here at Online Church of Uganda, Elder Eli Biliko, also written something that I refer the people on call to also check in the chat room as he's trying to make some quotations as well there. We have Edith, who is not yet on call, but when she joins us, she'll be able to catch up with us. Let me now give it to Reverend Cannon to introduce himself and then tell us about academic pressure. Yes, Reverend, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Modulator, Mr. Obo, you're Mr. That one. Praise the Lord. I'm Reverend Canon Dr. Duncan Zimugumia. By God's grace, I serve in St. Stephen's Chitara Church of Uganda, specifically in Chitara Mitiana Road Fellowship in Buloba. And at the same time, I serve as Commissioner of Physical Education and Sports in the Ministry of Education and Sports. But at the same time, I'm a director of our Grace International Ministries, which supports children in schools. It is there for health, education, missions, and outreach. I also I am a teacher by profession, a teacher of physics and mathematics. I have been I've been a counselor to children, students, and at the same time, a marriage counselor. And as a priest, I've been a prayer warrior, and that takes me also to counseling, especially to the many people who face challenges, among which many of them even are students, and others are even parents, but the challenges come from their children. I am married to Reverend Ellen Kebilunji Mugumia. She is a mother of 3, but we have other children that are not biological, but God has placed in our hands to take care of. And she is also she is a counselor. She does counseling especially to students. She also a lover of children and has talked a lot with children. So we usually share that experience. I think Dixon has said it well. Academic pressure, that a force that comes to a learner, because when we talk of academics, let us use learning. It can be a student, it can be a pupil, it can be someone in a higher institution of learning. That force may be intrinsic or extrinsic. Intrinsic, because someone wants to achieve a particular goal and says, I must achieve this. Maybe one is looking at either what he or she has heard people say. Extrinsic, because one wants to meet expectations of parents, pressure from parents, pressure from teachers, pressure from directors, pressure from peers, as such. So sometimes this pressure comes from outside. But there are those learners who themselves have pressure and inside intrinsically. But usually also that is caused by usually the experiences they go through, So some of them have internal motivations to cause them a stress. Like when I was a learner, I used not to feel good to be beaten academically by a female learner. So whenever I would be number 2 and number 1 is a female, I would have sleepless nights to the extent of quarreling with my mom about the burning of fuel at home in my primary. So that such thing, it was coming from me because of where I wanted to be and that kind of thing. But there are pressures that may come from directors of schools. You know, nowadays performance is where people are gauging, is where people increase the school fees. If this number of people, then they of learners, they will easily increase fees. Am I being heard?
Yes, we can
Hello?
hear you, Reverend.
You
Yes,
can hear
Reverend, we
me?
can hear you. Yes, we can hear you
Yeah,
clearly.
so such things and such cause academic pressures. And that's where the academic pressures come from. And so that's how I can describe it. Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you very much, Reverend Cannon. Friends on call, you can indeed see that we have the right people on call. Parents, parenting coaches, commissioners of education, but as well giving us their examples of growing up and not wanting to be beaten by females. Wow, that was quite a pressure to have because of how some girls were good perhaps at school. But thank you, Reverend, for your intro and also giving us that highlight about academic pressure. I'll be coming back to you, but right now, parenting coach Uncle Dixon said you are a parent of 3, and of course they do go to school, and perhaps in your parenting of these 3 blessings that God has given you, together with Muchala Governor, how has the academic pressure been able to manifest in the lives of your children? And has this pressure affected your children's motivation and confidence in any way? Or perhaps I should not confine you within only your children, since you are parenting other children as well. But how can academic pressure show up? How can it manifest in the life of a learner? And can this affect the child's or the learner's motivation and confidence? And perhaps what are the remedies that can bring up that we can bring about? Yes, Uncle Dixon, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Emma. I think from my own experience, but also from my children, because I've also been a student and I've also watched how my children can be under pressure. One way of, different ways of how I've seen my children get onto academic pressure is one, they will always complain about how they are being given too much work at school. And that even at home, you will see that even when they're at home, they are also on pressure to make sure that by the time they go back home, if they're in the school, they come from school, they reach home, they have homework to finish and hand in next day in the morning. In other families here, if they don't, you have had children say that if they don't finish the homework tomorrow morning, there will be a punishment. So a child comes home much as they are tired, but they ensure that by the time they sleep, you must help them as a parent, or they must work on their own and finish that work and take it. Also, you see a child trying to work hard to perform better and go to a certain school, and they read hard by hook or crook. Another way of academic pressure that we've seen in our children is sometimes they either lose sleep, or they lose appetite, or they oversleep because they already have fatigue, or the conversations they are talking about their teachers, how their teachers are, whatever words they are using, how much work they are given. For example, you hear it in the morning, they wake up at, as I already mentioned, they wake up early in the early hours of the morning. Then they have like 30 minutes of 30 minutes of breakfast. Then if they're in upper classes, by 7:15, they're expected to be in class latest. Let they have rest come from morning prep. Then they are starting their remedials. Then at 8, they are starting, or 8:30, they're starting normal classes, especially when they're in boarding, and then they're being joined by day scholars. Then at lunchtime, they have like, again, 20 minutes of lunch. Then they have lunch hour classwork to finish. They call it lunch hour classwork. Then at 4:30, they're out, but at 5, they have remedials. Like, too much pressure from morning up to evening. A child is in class, especially if they're in P6 and P7, child is in class. Then others, you see them fearful. They don't want to go to school in the morning. They're thinking, but why should I go to school? Or like, they are giving excuses. So you see that there's a lot of stress and anxiety that is around the child. Another one, as Reverend Caron said, some of the children, it is self-initiated pressure, such as me, I must work hard. So I achieve this, or I do this in this subject, or I am competing with this and that very one. So they end up also putting themselves on pressure to make sure they win others. So so from their words, from their conversations, from what they do, you can say there's pressure that this child is going through. And then when you another part was, does it affect their confidence? In one way, I would say, if it is external, yes, it must affect their confidence. Because, for example, if the teachers are putting them on too much pressure and they want them to get 4s, 5, and 6, and the child is still getting 13, or the child is trying to measure up to get first grade, or even, for example, where my children go in other schools, in P7, you find the D1 is at 95% and above. When they're in P6 and below, and maybe up to P4, D1 is 90, 93. So if you don't get 95 in P7, then it's like you're not performing very well. Even when you have improved your performance in certain subjects, but as long as you're not measuring up to 95%, it's like you're not performing. So that failure of reaching that level, whichever level, puts the child on tension, and that of course can affect their confidence. When a child is in class and other children are looking at this person as a failure because they're not getting first grade, because they're not getting maybe 4 or 5, to them, they're like, these ones are poor performers, and of course that also puts them down. When a child is some schools have streams from A maybe up to D, and the A stream is the best, A and B are the best performers. Then the C and D maybe those are the worst performers. Now, if a child is in D and studying with those ones who are in A, that means the one who is in D is already labeled as a poor performer, and at the end of the day, that can affect their performance. But on the other hand, if a child is performing and they are doing well and they are doing their best and they are performing their standards, I think that also puts their esteem high, and also it also improves their confidence and helps them to perform even better. But on a big note, what I have realized with pressure that we, even as parents, we put on our children, sometimes it affects their esteem, it affects their confidence, it puts them at the position of looking at themselves as failure if they're not meeting certain standard. And you see them working so hard to please you, and in short of pleasing you, then they feel like they are failures, and they don't feel like they are worth or measuring up to your expectations, or even the expectations of the school, even the expectations of themselves, if this is pressure from themselves. So that's one way I have seen how pressure can affect our children. And I was another part which I think you had asked. There were 3 things in one. You had talked about how academic pressure manifests, how does it affect confidence and their motivation. I don't know which, that I've forgotten the other part you had asked about.
Yeah, it was just about the confidence and their confidence and their emotions, how that will affect their motivation, which I think you responded to that.
Okay, yeah, but of course, we need to know that as all this is happening, at the end of the day, whether it's helping them to improve their performance, or it is affecting them, creating low confidence, at the end of the day, it brings emotional challenges, fatigue, exhaustion. they feel afraid and insecure, and they're always there's that competition which is not healthy. That sometimes you hear them speak words which are not good. Yeah.
Oh, Dixon, thank you, modulator. Even there, we now have serious cases of mental health because of those pressures. I recently met a child who lost a father, and the mother stays in Kampala, and they were here in Kampala. They had got some house, and what happened is that when the father died, this mother had about 3 children, and they were trying their best. But one girl was just an average learner, and some schools give bursaries to those who perform very well. So the mother was like, you see, this one may get a bursary, but you girl. And so the mother failed to get fees because she couldn't remove the children from the school that was paying needed high fees. And so she sold the house where they were staying, and they started renting because she needed fees. Now, when the girl brought a report, the mother said, do you know that I sold your father's house purposely to give you fees? Now, do you think I have another house to pay for you if you don't get to the first grade and then they give you bursary? And the girl developed, a lot of stress. And when she reached in school, she sat down and saw how others were performing and got her midterm papers. She started writing a letter. Dear mom, I'm sorry for hurting you that much. I understand you love me too much, and I know you want me to perform. I understand you sold my father's house to pay for me fees, but I have disappointed you. I am sorry. I will never disappoint you again, because as you read this later, it is my last voice to me. Don't blame anyone. We'll meet in heaven. Now, that a friend saw the lady writing in so funny way, and a friend grabbed the letter and saw it and took it to a senior woman, and the senior woman ended up, calling us for prayer and calling us for counseling. Imagine the pressure that can cause. That child she was an average student, and she was not on her last, even the last, but the parent could not associate this pressure she's putting on a child, could not appreciate that we can never be the same. And this is happening in homes. Children are hanging, children are taking poison. There are very many stories, untold stories. So those are serious effects. I was just supplementing my big friend Dixon.
Wow, thank you very much, Reverend. That was a very, very practical example that we can relate to so well and so much. Can imagine what the family went through after that. As you are giving that example, I was also remembering in my high school when I finished P7 and joined college, and I joined with my 10 aggregates, and then we had colleagues who came with 4 out of 4 aggregates, and they used to make fun of us. And long story quick, at the end of the year, we who got 10. We were not eliminated because the school could eliminate those who don't perform well. But some of the people who came with 4 out of 4, they didn't perform well in that senior one, and they ended up being eliminated, and they became again a laughing stock. I'm trying to give that example because I wanted to also bring a question to you, Reverend Cannon. As someone who is a policymaker in the commission, how do we then strike the balance? Because we want to be having high quality in terms of academic standards, but also we want to protect our children's well-being. Everyone wants to take their children to a school of 4 out of 4, to a school of first grade, to where they can get 20 points, regardless of what happens from there. But at the end of the day, we also want the child to be comprehensively nurtured and their well-being really being preserved. How would you advise, Reverend Cannon, a parent or a teacher, or maybe a pupil, to strike the balance between striving for excellence, like how we have termed excellence with the grading system, or simply someone really learning holistically. What would be your take on that, Derebrand?
Thank you, modulator, for giving me a good foundation because your example is a good foundation. I think parents, and especially when we are in church, because we are in church, especially when it comes to Christians, we need to differentiate between the scores and someone's destiny. We need to differentiate the scores and someone's destiny. Someone scoring 4 may not mean that he or she is intelligent. We now have what we call rote learning in schools. Rote learning. They go from P5, children are doing examinations weekly. So they are not being taught, they are being examined. How do you assess what you have not taught? And therefore, learners are given the way just to answer. The capital city of Kenya is Nairobi. But somebody is not educating this learner what the word capital city mean, what it means. So the child is not relating. So when they are learning, they are just giving rote answers because they have met this question many times. That's why the children can be asked that the past tense of clap is clapped. The past tense of dig. Then after giving because they will easily say digged. The first tense of go it because they have been taught rotely, and then they don't know where it comes from. So in case you give them a word they have never met, they will give it different. But what is the purpose of education? The purpose of education, like now in Uganda, education is put under human capital development to develop a holistically developed child. Yes, we need the what we call the academic part, which is the cognitive domain. The child needs to know, to have that cognitive knowledge. But the child also needs some other things like affective domain. The child needs to know, to be taught etiquettes. The child needs to be taught values. The child needs to be taught life skills. Can I meet someone and say, stop and say, how are you? That is may not just need somebody who has a 4. But this thing will stop a learner in future to get a job. You come into a panel, you can't greet a panel, or you have just met your panelist outside in the veranda and you've not greeted, and you meet them in front, you lose a job opportunity. The child needs psychomotor skills. Depending on age, they need to play. Lack of play makes Tom a dull boy. I have seen parents struggling to push children in distant schools purposely that they are looking for quality. You put a learner from Mukono early morning, you are driving a learner to Kampala, parents in Kampala. You are in a jam. The learner has been told to get up at 3 in the night because you want to beat a jam. When you reach in school, the learner is dozing. But when toward the school, you are saying you have not done your classwork. The child is behind, the parent is driving in a jam, the child is behind fidgeting with coursework because the teacher will ask coursework. When you are coming to pick the child at 5, a parent has a stress because at the work he is supposed to stop at 5, but the boss has given work up to 6. He's going to pick a learner is on the road, then they are in the jam doing coursework for tomorrow because they know they get up early. The learner is confused. It drains the brain. There is burnout of the head. Then remember, as Dixon said, they didn't have after break time. They are doing exercise to be back after break. During after classes, there is no time for play, time for games has been given. All that will torture a run, and we won't get we won't get a holistically developed child. That's why we are getting children who are obese at the age of 10, 11. They eat, go to toilet, go to class, go to dining, toilet, class, dining, toilet, class. They never play. They never make their brains work. At home, when they are not on coursework, they are on TV. They are on phones, and so we are no longer going to. If this trend continues, we will not produce better children for us. And the government has put in place. That's why, as government, now if you realize there is a circular by permanent secretary, because as I said before, these pressures even come from external. When you go to these candidate classes, they want to be advertised, they want to be put in papers. Our PS has written a circular now to all schools. This system of putting students' photos and what in papers and how they have performed is now not allowed. People can try to say, go on TV and talk, but it is not allowed. Also, the ministry, the grading system of O level, the way people used to say grade 1, we now almost removed it. Though some people are still praising themselves, but it is no longer stiff the way it used to be. We are even working hard to see what we can do with grading of P7. If you look at this year's exams, you will all know that. When I was asking many people why social studies was done poorly, the teachers were giving me reasons that the way they asked social studies, they needed knowledge rather than groundwork. Let me give an example. Instead of asking a child, what are the 5 pillars of Islam? Somebody can be asked, if you are a parent and you have a child who you are a Muslim parent who is a child who is a Muslim, what would you teach your child to be a good Muslim? So the answer needed is like, I would teach my child to pray 5 times a day. You are mentioning 5 pillars of Islam. So the child who doesn't know that now the question needs 5 pillars will start saying, I will teach the child to speak well. I teach the child to be disciplined. And that's why children were failing. I've not looked at the paper, but all the teachers that have asked about SST is what they told me. And that is a curriculum we have brought as a ministry, as government at all level, because we want children to start thinking rather than being. And so you telling a child to study late in the night will not help the child do a project. And so that is the method we are trying to do to eliminate that. We have tried to, as government, we have tried to help parents understand, because the challenge, actually the big challenge, is not from the school owners. The big challenge is from parents. The school owners do what parents want to see. Tell a school or tell the parents that your children in this school will speak English only, and therefore forego their local language. They will say our children should go here because they speak English. And when they lose their language, they lose the values of their culture. They will lose the values of their culture. And so that's what ministry there tries to say, let local language be part of the teaching. We may go back soon to thematic curriculum where children should study in their local language up to like P3, P4, and then start doing English, such that they may learn values of their culture. You know, learning, learning originally, and that's what it is still. Learning, we learn to do. We learn to live with others. We learn to be. I think very few people may still be remembering such, because people are no longer doing that. And so If I were a parent, I would ask myself, what will it benefit me to have a child who has a pass 3.4 aggregate and goes to Ntare school and is eliminated at senior 2? I would rather have a child who is aggregate 7 and go to a school and finish well. Me, I got pressure to study at P7 and failed mathematics with an F9. I got an external pressure somewhere. And then my mother told me to repeat and said, this is not your performance. I changed the school, went away from pressure, stayed with my mother and got a D1. I'm now a teacher of mathematics. So you can imagine, my mother never put me on pressure. She would just talk to me and say, if you perform well, in future you'll be somebody. And I got just courage to read. And when I wanted to overread, she stopped me. She said, no, you need rest. But nowadays, the parents can never tell children they need rest. They believe everyone must be, on top, and we can't all be on top. So it's high time we continue to sensitize parents. We church leadership, I thank God for Online Church of Uganda to have brought such a topic. We need these minimal. We need them in our churches. We need them in public, in public gatherings, that we may help parents know that God has a plan for everyone, and God has never planned that we'll all be the same. We will not all be commissioners. Others will be commissioners, and others. And God's plan is not tagged to being the top in class. And so that's what I can say as per now, unless you have any other for me.
Yes, thank you, Reverend Canon Dr. Duncan Zimugumya. Our moderator has got a technical issue. He's off now. But
sorry.
we continue to welcome you all, for those of us who are joining. And now, as I come to you, Mr. Dixon, during our days, you would find the school paying 25,000 as school fees termly. But now, we have gone to the extent that even daycare pay as low as 1M. And now to you, Mr. Dixon, considering how much parents invest highly in the so-called high-performing schools with remedial classes, extra coaching, and now with all these pressures, does the learning outcomes achieved match the investment real? Thank you.
Thanks so much, Raban. I think some schools some parents put children in these schools where they're paying a lot of money in primary, in secondary, where even the fees in primary and secondary is higher than the fees we are paying at the university for even postgraduate studies. Like masters, you can find that you're paying, we have had schools where they pay 3.5 as school fees in secondary, which is almost the same as PhD fees in the public universities. And that is the expensive payment at the university level. Some schools, yes, they do this and maybe achieve the grades they are looking for. The children get 4s, get 5, and all these things. Yes. And to us as parents, we feel like, yes, we have achieved, and because our children have gone to those schools. But we forget that we are looking at only grades, but you're not looking at the other side of the story, the impact this one is creating on children, because they are cramming, they're memorizing, yes, they are passing exams, but they are not building understanding. They're not critically thinking. They're not innovative. They are just, that's why we have planned kids these days. And that's why Reverend was saying that because of the cram work, we have children who are, we talk about, as I was talking about the past tense, the tenses that she was mentioning about. So we are just there having children who cannot critically think. And all they know is that their life must be kind of straight. They believe in no failures. They believe that I can do all these things. So the investment, most of the time actually does not even yield to what we are talking about. I believe that most parents, especially like what we have seen in the last PLE results, most parents are crying because they were disappointed with the general performance at the country level. So I can say sometimes, most of the time, when you look at the investment we put in, your child wakes up at 3. And so by 4, the child is, or maybe at 4, preparing, especially those who are in the schools. The van is coming to pick the child at 6 or at 5:30, and the child goes around the whole the entire place to pick other children. They reach at school at 8. Then the child enters class. They find that the ones who are in boarding school, they have already learned some things. They've already done some kind of revision, and then they begin classes together. But the child is already fatigued. He's already anxious that the other ones have already started and they missed that one. Then in the evening, the other ones are going back. The other ones are going back for classes. This one is being picked and brought back home again, taken around, and then they come with homework. As the other ones at school are now joining prep at 7. They have already done some remedials between 5:30 to 6:30 there. So the child, this one who is like a day scholar, is on tension all throughout. So you will think that yes, you're doing well because in terms of grades, yes, they're achieving grades, but in terms of the other life, they are completely finished. And then before you know it, you have these children who can't think on their own. You have a child who sleeps a lot during the whole day, and my child is lazy. The child is not lazy, but there's too much fatigue, both physically, mentally, emotionally. I know this children can't think on their own. So me, I would think that the investment we are making, but also even as parents, still we're also always on pressure, because you have to wake up this child, you have to prepare for the child, you have to go for the VDs. These days, thank God for the message which you list on the VDs, but still it has not changed much. Our commissioner once said you had recommended 1 VD in a term. You have said you should not take food, we should not take ABCD. It only worked in 1 term, but after that 1 term, life has gone back to normal. So we are still taking too many things to school. We are still paying a lot of school fees. We are still paying for extra coaching. Whole day classes are happening. Thank God we said you report on 10th, but I want to assure you, some could have already planned to report it before. If your daughter again come up and emphasize it as means of education, our children by now, they would be already at school this week because they always want to go a week before. So I can say the investment is not worth what we are seeing in terms of the performance. So I believe we need to do something. For us as parents, if we can stop looking at grades, but think about the kind of the product we are going to have in our children, and we condemn what we are trying to see, and maybe continue to talk with the ministry to make sure the policies they put in place are enforced and the schools are following them. Then maybe that can help. But also, I am seeing the academic, right now, we are going to have children who are going to be going back to school soon in different classes, especially in new schools. Maybe these ones who have finished P7 soon, senior 4 and senior 6, senior 4 exams are coming, and then you should be taking them back to school and maybe to different schools. But the requirements are too high. So that puts me as a parent, but also the child on pressure to get all these requirements. Even when they ask for those requirements at the beginning of the term, but also when you look at when you're going for the VD, the list of the things that your child is asking you, because of the pressure from their friends, the peer pressure, because of the things that us as parents take. In fact, you're almost borrowing even money to go to KFC or Cafe Javas to also go and show off, because your child will not feel happy that you have come to visit when you don't have what others are having. All that is academic pressure, which is not necessary. So the investment is not worth the results we are getting, I can say.
But Mr. Modulator, I see time is coming. Mr. Dixon, I want to inform you that the Bible says, Galatians chapter 6, verse 7, that do not be deceived. God is never mocked. A man reaps what he sows. We have told people and they have failed to listen, but they are harvesting slowly. I want to inform you there are people who paid millions, 3.5 fees in secondary schools, and their children got 20 points. When they apply for law, when they apply for medicine, then they say, no, before you come for this, there is a what? A pre-entry, right? And I tell you, parents have been disappointed terribly. Your child has 20 BCM, then wants medicine. Then the child of 18 He's being given medicine, and he has failed. He fails on government and fails on private. And then they start going down into those down private schools. My child wants medicine here. Others have tried. Let me try abroad. I think, and when you go abroad, you pay heavily. I think people have started running. Then we also have we that one has made people understand. Then we have these ones who take children to schools, and they are what they are discontinued. Then of recent, when we release the results, there is a time a big school, the primary school in this city, where people were taking children to pay heavily. So the school cheated, and the results were is heard. Hey, I tell you, if you saw people who were calling, commissioner, help us, there were results, and you never cannot hold results just like that. By the time they say we can't release, they have made research, they have evidences. People lost money. I tell you, a whole time you have been paying 2.5, your child has lost time, your child has wasted time, because they are looking for schools that have pressure of passing, and the directors have seen how costly it is. Businesses are getting challenges. So slowly, people will learn. Some people who don't learn will learn in a hard way. But also, I want to come back to a parent. Me, I am an educationist who is a PhD in education. But I took my children to a village school there in my home in Shema, and people laughed at me. My firstborn did in a school you don't know the name. It is called Chivanga, Triple J Primary School. Imagine. And people laughed at me, said, the whole of you said, me, I am comfortable because I am looking at what the child is doing. And that child got a 9 in PLE. That 9, when she went to Geranyanji, that 9 was better than the 5C. And my child finished Geranyanji well and went to Ndeje and went to a university. I was paying 200 for boarding, as people were paying, millions of money. But I ended up doing what? Getting a better result. My boy did the same, and they was in the same school in a village. I was paying 200 for boarding. The boy ended up with aggregate 8 and went to Ntare school. But I tell you, in Ntare school, the boy performed far better than many. That's why Ntare maintained him for A level. So people are going to learn slowly, and understand that really I can take my child where I want. I help my child and understand. The parents are competing as families. Somebody's child is in this school where they pay. Nanchiza Center, is this person richer than me? It's not about that. It's about what you want. If you want your child not to face stress of long distances in Kampala, put a child in the nearby school. It's better for a parent, if your child is a slow learner, to get a teacher and give this child supplementary support, for learning, than making a child travel in a taxi, travel in those buses I see moving around in a jam for longer distances without stress, without heat in the car. Let the child be near and then come back to you. Give a support, the child will pass. And even if it is a good grade 2, a child will go to a school and perform, and you'll have a lawyer, you'll have a doctor. So I think we need more to help parents know that it is not about saying my child is in this school. Some people, when I became a commissioner, when my son finished, I said, you take the child to Budo. He said, all Ugandans, 45 million, will not go to Budo. If they have not, they call, admitted him. Let him be admitted in another school. I support him, encourage him to do well. I have seen 4s, I've seen 8 in 8, not coming in Budo alone. So parents need to know more. Parents need to trust that God has given us different talents. Your child may look to be not very intelligent, but you may find this child has a skill that will never be got by by the most intelligent child. And as ministry, we are saying, let children have life skills that will make them better citizens, that will make them better doctors, than having someone who is full of academics and cannot even be a human being to live with others. This person who can easily look at a patient and say, look at this stupid, dirty woman or dirty man, and fail to treat him. Better have somebody who has a skill, respect for life, who has, that holistic development, who is average and will help the patient get treated. Is better than this genius who is going to leave a patient because the patient has not yet done the bathing. Thank you.
Wow, wow. Thank you, Reverend Canon Dr. Duncan Zimugumya. Now this comes back what I posted in the chat earlier. Do you know that most of these runners who score 4, 5, 6 there in primary score those aggregates out of cram work, pressure, and do you know what happens when they join secondary? Do you know that someone who scored 16, 17 without pressure, with proper guidance, outcompetes them to the extent that they can't even be in the same division or in the same range at senior 4? We have a challenge nowadays. Most learners are taught to cram, pass, and go. Most schools don't mind about their days after that school. So as parents, I think don't need to take that pressure as the only solution. Now, you Reverend Canon Duncan Zimugumya, friend here has a question. Let me get it from Edith Biriku. She's asking, and the ministry. Let me get the questions and let me get the question and read it the way it has come. Can the ministry give hope, assurance to a child with aggregate 9 in all subjects, with the current system considered as a total failure?
Oh, thank you. I want to arrest the fears. Now in the ministry, we don't have anyone we call a total failure. Because that child may not be told to go to a secondary school, but that child will be told to go for skills. You see, where that's why even we are tending to say we remove F. By the way, those failures in the future, we are going to remove them. The ministry, government will remove them. That's why now in secondary school, we no longer have F. We have E, A, B, C, D, E. E means you've gotten some knowledge, but it is not sufficient knowledge to push you to A level. And therefore, with that thing of yours, you can go and be somebody else. Now, we have introduced what we call, now we have what we call like joining courses. How do they call them? At university, people who are doing those courses now. If you make points which may not allow you to go to university, they give you a course for like 9 months. You do it. After doing it, you still get a certificate equivalent of A level. Then you use those results to help you join university, either at diploma or bachelor's. Mari. Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I was cut off. Also in primary, someone with nines can be led to skills and then we now have TVET, where somebody, for example, can get a certificate of a technician. You go and do carpentry. I
Hello.
think somebody was disturbing me with a call. You get a certificate of a technician, which you can even go in 2 levels, and you find. I have a friend who is doing very good welding. This guy dropped out in senior 2. He has no O-level certificate, but now he's a chairman of businessmen in one of the towns I don't want to mention here. He has never gone beyond senior 2, but people who did BBA, he's their chair. Why? His business is progressing. He's training people who have finished senior 4 to come and be trained as technicians in welding, and he's producing good work. Tell him I want a pulpit of this design. You will give him a design, he will produce it, and you'll pay him millions of money. Where teachers with bachelors are being paid in private schools 200,000. So there is hope for a child who got nines only. Take this child to a TVET institution. Let the child get skills. From there, he or she will go on. Even in the future, if he's doing skills, he can do what we call mature age entry and even again continue in education. There is hope for that child.
Wow, wow. I think now our fears should be put to rest because there is hope for that child. I am reliably informed that our third speaker is on call using the name Cherangat Susan, but she's Miss Edith Tereka. And now to you, Miss Edith Tereka, I have a question for you, and it has been put in the chat from Bat Baba. How can we differentiate between performance pressure and trying to inculcate hard work and self-drive in a child?
Thank you very much, the moderator. And I want to comment the previous speakers. I am Tereka Edith, speaking from Kapchora, and I am the headmistress of Kapchora Parents Secondary School. I am an experienced teacher, qualified teacher, been teaching for almost 24 years now in secondary school. Academic pressure is really bad, but to a certain extent, it is important, especially in candidate classes. But for a child who is in primary 1, primary class to primary around P5, they need to be taught to understand. Because academic pressure will only force a learner to cram. So academic pressure will only come when a child has already understood the concept. Then you help them, put them on pressure. I remember in P7, that school, primary school, our teachers would write for us so many blackboards. And because of the pressure, we were all helped, and almost half of the class in P7 got first grades. But now, what I would really think, I would deviate a bit from the previous speaker. I didn't get his name. According to the way he's explaining, it is as if people who go for skills are failures, which is not true. What I would think, we would look at a learner, even a parent, look at your own child, identify what they can do best. If they are good at mathematics, then help them improve in mathematics. And even at the end, look for courses that are in line with where the child has ability. Not like the fact that the child who gets a 9 goes for a skill. Not like that. Even child who gets a first grade can go for vocational education, which is a shortcut to employable skills. But if you put pressure to a child who is in lower primary, such a child will not understand anything. And the primary level is the foundation for academic success. If a child is not prepared or was not prepared well in primary, they will never perform well in secondary. We receive students from good schools with 4 aggregates, but because they were on pressure right from primary 1, they come with 4 aggregates. In the senior, you test them with the same paper they did in KE, and they will not even get 20%. So I think we need to teach. We have to sensitize the real parents. Let's not force our children to do what they cannot. Because that does not come basing on people's grades. We have seen very many children who got first grades still working on the streets looking for jobs. Yet the mediocres and those who are poor performers are having better jobs, which means there was something better they could do other than being forced to or being put on pressure to study what they could not. The pressure at all levels is not okay, but it is only good at the last stage of education, especially candidates P7, senior force, because if you don't put that little pressure, they will not revise. At senior force, they are given a lot of papers. You find in the morning prep, there is a test. In the evening, there is a test. That forces a child who has been prepared well from senior up to senior 3 to just revise and understand, and finally they will have better grades. But because they were taught well, they were helped to master the concepts, they will always have academic success. Thank you very much. I'm very sorry the network is poor here. Maybe because my phone is not used to the environment. But I'm very grateful for this great discussion.
Oh, thank you, Miss Edith Tereka. And dear friends, we are coming to the end of this, but before we end, I think we have heard from all of them, all the three speakers, that pressure, if we are to use today's language, pressure is of PO box era. Pressure doesn't work. If I can tell you about myself, I finished my primary in a government school. Got there my average second grade, and then went to secondary. I met people who had done 8, 9, 12, but you can now start thinking of how I punished them in quotes at senior 4. You realize most private schools and even some government schools have started teaching learners to pass and go. Where you go is not their business. So we need to be so much interested in life after school, because if you make research, you have some people who have become mad, you may say, because of these pressures. But this is not what you would wish your child to meet at some point. And to your moderator, thank you. And I want to ask you in 3 or 4 words, in just a sentence, summarize this, give us your advice. How should we do it? How should we improve it? I would request that Mr. Dixon, you give us your final words as a parent, then Ms. Edith Tereka as a teacher, and Reverend Canon Dr. Duncan Zimugumya as a policymaker. Thank you. And I start with you, Mr. Dixon.
Thank you so much, Laban. I think what I can say as we conclude that let's all believe in our children. Let's all stand with our children. Let's all speak in the lives of our children. The world does not stop at grades. And what we call failure today, depending on how you perceive it and help your child. If you're expecting 4 and your child got 15, to you it looks like a failure. But depending on how you take it and explain to your child, that child can, if you say that you passed and appreciate your child and help your child to overcome that fear and kind of shame, I want to assure that in the next level, your child will still shine and your child will still live their dream. So it's us to stand with our children, keep them in check, encourage them, tell them to rest, give them good words, and be present in their lives, in their academic life, and that will bless them to become what they want to be in the future. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, modulator. From the policy making side, we have already put a policy in place that children should study in secondary schools up to, and then be allowed to do other skills, be allowed to do projects where they need critical thinking, where they need but where they will get administrative skills, communication skills. And therefore, as parents, support the government as we do this. We are saying you don't need to make sure that the child is learning during night and during day. You only need to make sure that the child is having time for academics, having time for self-reflection of what has been studied, having time to play. You will produce a holistically developed child. It is our intention as government. We call upon the other organs, the church, the parents, to make sure that you support us as we achieve that. We will produce good citizens for this nation. I thank you.
For me, I would think we need to focus on individual progress. Let's celebrate the small wins of our children as teachers and as parents. That will help us to encourage them. We should also use growth mindset language. Even when the child is improving, you can do better. You will make it. That language can give encouragement to the learner, even when they are performing well. Then we should also emphasize effort over achievement and encourage curiosity of our learners or our children as teachers and parents. Then also we need to give private feedback, not public. It is always not good even if when your child has performed poorly, give their marks publicly. That one alone will even reduce their morale. So let's give just private feedback. You call your son and say, here you did perform well, but I believe you can do better than this. And I believe if we continue doing this, all the children have ability. No one is born without an ability. Obviously, all this should be done with the prayer. Parents and teachers should speak positively to their children. If the child wants to be an engineer, even call them, hey, Engineer Donita, Engineer Doreen, yes, Chef Donita, how are you? That alone makes the child to work harder. And even the way we speak to them, let's speak positively. Even when they perform not to expectations, we should not harm them, let's not abuse them, let's befriend them. You find that the child who was performing poorly will work hard to perform better, and finally they will achieve academic success. Thank you very much.
Oh, wow. Thank you to our speakers this evening.